Okay, folks, good morning to this week's Saturday morning show. We are talking about this morning is selling for the first time. If you've got someone that's selling for the first time, I would tag them in this post or I would share it with them, definitely. Because this is our guide to getting it right and avoiding the typical beginner's mistakes. And that's quite a lot, isn't it, Andrea?
Yes. Good morning, Jim.
I mean, whether you're going up market or finding a bigger place, relocating for work, or schools, or even downsizing for a long-time family from a long-time family home, selling for the first time is an exciting prospect in your life's next chapter. It's one of the most stressful things. That, alongside getting married, having children, divorce, starting a new job, these are all the things that cause a huge amount of stress in our life. Now, I'm not saying avoid them as much as you can. What I'm saying is you can minimize the stress as much as possible just by getting the right information from the right people. And this is what we're here to deliver today. So even so, the idea of selling your home can feel like uncharted territory. And even seasoned sellers who have sold a few times can forget actually what's involved because it is a long time. It's usually typically, Andrea, I think it's usually typically 10 years between somebody selling now. I mean, pre credit crunch, it was usually every 5 to 6 years, and now all of a sudden it's now moved out to every 10 years that people sell. Is that probably about right?
Yeah, I think that's about right. On average, people move house. I think it was between 10 and 12 years, depending on the area. But in the Fife area, it was every 10 years.
So it's easily understandable why people can actually just forget what was needed to do. And they typically think I could sell no bother. That's the one misconception everybody gets, isn't it? Oh, my house will
Yeah.
sell no bother. My house will sell itself. Then why have you got an estate agent then? If your house is going to sell itself, because all you need to do is just
Mhm.
leave it and the house will sell itself. Clearly it won't, obviously. But you know how I'm doing this tongue in cheek? Because it's amazing. Even my cat could sell the house. However, it's what the house goes for. It's the most important figure because that is the one it'll either leave you with less or more money in your pocket at the end of that deal. So, among the new experiences just over the horizon are pitfalls to avoid. So, timescales to meet and choices to make. Now, the things that we're going to talk about today, including identifying accurate versus inflated valuations. So, this is how to identify if your estate agent is actually deliberately inflating the price. I've heard it time and time again where sellers, when I've been out to see them and have been up against other people, have actually said to me, so where do you get that valuation from? And then I would produce a full dossier of examples in here where I've got similar types of properties actually sold, like this one,
Mhm.
and like this one, and like this one, and that one, and that one, and this one. So these are all, this is how you do an accurate valuation. It's about making sure you've got the right information, and we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. The next one is choosing the best estate agent. How to choose the best estate agent. What do you really look for? Now, I need some help here from the public. If you're listening in or tuning in, how would you choose the best estate agent? I'd be interested to hear your comments on that. Minimizing legal delays, how to avoid that. I mean, it's
Mhm.
amazing the amount of times we're kind of caught between the devil and the deep blue sea sometimes, aren't we? Because we're
Yeah.
caught in the middle, Andrea, between the solicitor and between the seller. And we've done our job of selling the house and pass it on to the solicitor to do the conveyancing. But often it's not a solicitor of our choice, it's the solicitor of the seller's choice. And therefore, sometimes there's maybe an insinuation they're trying to pass the buck and the blame onto someone else like us. Does that sound familiar? Yes, see, you laugh.
Yep.
It's the reason why we usually prefer some typical solicitors that we know we've worked with for years and years and years, and we know fine they'll progress it through at the right pace, and we know fine we can trust them to get on with the job. Probably the fourth one in this conversation will be preparing for photographs and viewings, and actually video, because we do video walkthroughs, so preparing for that as well. So giving people an insight. You'll be amazed yesterday, quick update here at Queen Margaret Street, I did yesterday. So Queen Margaret Street, there was a couple of things in the actual shot, and I was able to just to minimize them and leave them out the shot completely. So most people don't realise what's going on behind us, while somebody else was moving actually behind me from room to room at the same time. So had no idea. So it's amazing what you can do with your camera and with the right audio and with the right video content to reach the audience that otherwise no one else could reach. I think there's an advert somewhere. Heineken. Is it Heineken refreshes other parts that other beers can't reach? Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
sure other beers can too.
And finally, this is the one that you want to hang on for, is accepting the right offer and how to know what the right offer is and how to qualify that offer as well. That's probably the best one. So watch out for that one, listen out for that one towards the end. That is the one you really got to listen for. Daunted? Well, don't be. Our handy guide will walk you through this whole process in these 5 important stages so you can swap beginner's nerves for selling your home with confidence. Accurate versus inflation, inflated valuations. What's your thoughts on this, Andrea? I mean, I personally, I have not always been an estate agent, so I've come across it myself. But what's your thoughts on it? Have you experienced this?
I have. I've seen it in other companies where valuations have been sort of topped out as much as possible. Somebody's probably gone in and said to the vendor or the seller, what do you want for it? What are you looking at? And they say, I want at least 500,000, and it's sitting at maybe a £320,000 house. So the person's gone and tried to get their valuation as close to that as possible. And then, of course, when the surveyor goes in, obviously in Scotland we have our home reports, so it's what the surveyor says the valuation is.
I think the surveyor's a bit of a blessing in disguise when it comes around to accurate valuations, because sometimes it can be a blessing in disguise, but it's good also. You have to understand as well the information that the surveyor's putting together is based on historical information. And that means it could be data. It's on the land register. You think it's currently sold right now because it's been registered now, but it was actually sold 9 months ago, and it was waiting to go the legal process to go through and to get the mortgage sorted out. And then you've only seen it appear maybe the month before when it was actually sold 9 months before. So there's a balance between outdated information and real-time information which you get, which is why I talked about comparables here, about making sure you've got information about what's actually sold. I mean, in this one, and we've got in 4th Street in St Monans, but that one's actually signed up, by the way, so if anybody's interested, cracking house. We've got actually real-time information for properties that actually have been sold now with us, currently waiting to go through.
Yeah, I was going to say that
gives a real-time accurate information about exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I think when the market is a bit not unstable, but you just have no idea at the moment what a property is going to go for, and we can be surprised by some of the prices that we're getting at the moment, and then another one will not even make its home report valuation. So the agent is the one that knows the most up-to-date information, probably more so than the surveyors.
So it's probably having that good relationship with your surveyor. I mean, I identified it in the boom, which I knew the boom was coming anyway. We saw that with the multipliers. They were really historically low, and there was only a matter of time before a correction came as a result of that, and to put it back to the right multiplier in terms of salary versus average price. So I saw that straight away. But what I was trying to get across to most of the surveyors was they didn't realise that I was selling houses for £100,000 more than the 300,000 I had it on it. And I was getting £100,000 more, and they were sitting saying, well, it's only 300,000. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've got exactly the same house around the corner. It is just sold. And I've got 2 offers of over 100,000, and I've not even got it on a website yet. And you're telling me this is only worth 300,000? No way. So this is why real-time information is so important from your current estate agent, and understanding in order to negotiate or influence. I wouldn't say negotiate, influence the surveyor to the right valuation it should be, but give them the right information. So you're influencing them, but you're actually giving them more information than they would actually have on the historic register to get them to a point where they understand where your market is right now, where your property value is right now. Because after all, this could mean you could lose £10,000, £20,000. in your end result. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I walked up to you now and said, oh, I'll just take £20,000 out of your bank, you would go, wait a minute, call the police. And yet, this happens all the time with some estate agents. They don't actually value correctly. Therefore, the value in the home report is used to get the funding from the bank. And therefore, if you get that wrong and it's undervalued, then you're going to lose about £10,000 or £15,000.
I think a lot of viewers who, especially the ones who've not got their properties on the market yet, and that haven't sold for quite a while, when they go to view a house and they see that it maybe needs, a bit of work done to it, they're subtracting that amount of work from what you've got it on at. And they're not realising that the valuation is based on the current condition of the property.
Yeah, that is quite an important one, yeah. I've seen that quite a lot where I've caught people out with that. And the fact that you would walk around and they would say, oh, there's about £50,000 worth of work needing done. And then I would go right at the back of them, let's walk through this. The windows, how much is that? And then by the time we got to the end of it and I went through all the different things, I established we could do this for 25,000, half the price of what you're saying. And I would just say tongue in cheek, well, I tell you what, I'll do it for 50 and I'll bill you for it, but I could do it for probably about 18 cost. And I'll just make the difference if you want. And then they got the message. And then they would make the offer at the appropriate level based on the information I've just had. Because I knew all the contractors anyway, because I've been a landlord for years and I understand what it costs to do everything and refurbish everything, because there's not anything that I've not done before.
Yeah. So it's a typical scenario, though, Jim, that sellers want to sell as high as they can, and buyers want to buy as cheap as they can. And it's finding that middle ground where everybody's happy.
It's a win-win situation, isn't it? Win-win situation. I mean, let's get back to this subject about estate agents are really keen to win your business. But if you need to know your home has the best chance of selling when it goes to market instead of sticking around and going stale. So you need to know this. This means scrutinising the advice that you're actually given to avoid being misled by an inflated valuation. So listen out for this if you're thinking about selling, or you've got somebody coming round to see you, or you're maybe on the market right now. So protecting your move in case it doesn't work out with your first agent. So make sure, this is the things that you need to make sure for. Check the valuations reflect prices of homes that have actually sold, and challenge valuations that match homes that have sat in the market for a long time. And this is why I talk about this. This is what an agent should be coming around with historical valuations and prices of property that are actually sold, not just from themselves, but from other agents in the area, to reflect exactly where the valuation of your property is in terms of everybody else's. And that's the sort of thing you've got to ask them straight away. So as soon as an estate agent sits in front of you and says to you, I think your house is worth that much. And you're right, Andrea. First of all, the classic is, what are you hoping to achieve? And I do it myself, but I've got it written down anyway, what my number is. And people usually try and catch me out and say, well, you tell me yours first. And I'm like, well, it's no competition. I says, I've still got it written down. I've still got it written down anyway. So it's not as if I'm going to change it. I just want to manage your expectations in case you think it's going to be 100,000 more than what we're about to talk about. And I need to go about it the right way rather than actually delivering this to you. And then you more or less look at me and think, I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's all based on the information I've just presented to you. So this is why you have to challenge an estate agent when they give you the valuation. First of all, the first thing you should say is, where did you get that figure from? I think it's just that. It's just that. It's like, I believe it or not, a lot of them actually do that because they've not got the time to sit and do the back work. They've not got time to sit and do the appraisals. They don't have all that time to do all the historical valuations of other properties and put a pack like this together. They literally just have to run on volume. And so they're walking in and they're just coming up with a figure off the top of their head. And it will be kind of accurate, but you're better to have some sort of evidence to back that up, definitely, especially if you think your house is worth a lot more. But as you said, Andrea, a lot of people have actually been not sold their house for maybe 10 years on average. And if you see 10 years worth of appreciation, it's often difficult to comprehend the fact that your property has gone up so much in value. I've seen it quite a lot where that's happened, Andrea. I've seen it where the valuation has gone up so much that the seller, when I'm sitting in front of them, actually don't believe me. The valuation is at that price because it's to them. They really wouldn't bring it into fruition about the fact that it really is. I mean, I've done it myself with my previous estate agent. Before I had an estate agency, I sat there and said to Gordon, I said, "Really? Do you think it's worth that much? I mean, we only bought it for about £70,000, and you're telling me it's 140 now, and we've only been in it maybe about 10 years. That's crazy." And yeah, it went for that figure. So it's easy to get caught up in that, that sort of valuation and not believe. And that's why I was challenged that time. I remember it was in Cooper. The guy challenged me and said, "I'm going to go with you," he says, "because I challenged you and you presented all the right evidence to suggest this was actually less of a valuation, by the way. Everybody else was higher than me." And he says, "You presented all the information that told me straight away what my house was worth. Everybody else told me the valuation was higher. And it would have been easy for me to believe them, but they never presented anything like you presented in all these comparables." And lo and behold, his house went for just a little bit less than what I'd actually said. So it shows you straight away that everybody else was just plucking a figure out the air without knowledge and information about where it is. The second one I would say to watch out for is notice whether estate agents giving surprisingly high valuations have also long contract terms. Now, we don't do that particularly. It's a 28 days notice period, and it could be any time. If you're getting to that stage where you're going to invoke the contract, it's like you're on a hiding to nothing. It's the beginning of the end, so you may as well just let them go. But the key is here, some estate agents, and I've seen it, have like the first 90 days you're locked into it. I think you worked for them previously, one of these agents previously, Andrea, in Perth.
Yeah. Also, when selling a house, prior to signing yourself up to sell it, the agents that we had out, one of them was a commercial agent because it had a business attached to it, but also quite a high profile agent for selling bigger country houses. Had and I think it was 9 months you were locked in for.
Yeah, it's quite bad. David actually says this. What do you consider a long time before the property goes stale? David, a property never goes stale. And the reason for that is because your buyers are perpetual; they change every single day. So, for example, in Fife, there's 20 people in Fife every single day to make a decision to sell or buy a house. So in 2 months' time, there is 2 months worth of stock on the market. There's about 1,000 properties in Fife, and there's about 500 bought every single month. So there's about 2 months worth of stock on the market. So once all that 2 months passes, more or less all the buyers are buyers were probably not there 2 months before. So every single 2 months, every single 2 month period, the cycle of buyers changes. Therefore, they're seeing your property for the first time. So the property doesn't necessarily go stale. What you have to look at is, and I could prove that because we've had that where I was challenged with somebody in St Andrews about that maybe a few years ago. He challenged me about it, and he says my property will go stale because it's been in the market for 6 months. And what we're going to do about it? And I went, "David, don't worry about it. Your property isn't stale. As I've just explained to everybody here, this is why it doesn't go stale, because your buyers change every single day. New buyers come into the market and see the property for the first time. So to them, it's not out of date. And they've not seen it before. So it's new to them. And it's the point of readiness for them. So that's the most important thing, to marry that up. But then what happened after that is we left it as it is. And within a couple of months, we actually got the right buyer and we pushed them to higher than the home report. And the deal was done. So it's easy to get caught up in this thing about the property is going to be stale. It doesn't. It could be the fact that maybe the description and maybe the alignment of the photos, in other words, the order of the photos or your main front photograph, isn't quite right, and that's why you're not getting the click-through from there. So in other words, so when somebody's scrolling on their phone, and they're going up and down, the click-throughs when they press on it, and it goes to the further details. So if you're, and every agent has access to click-through rates. So if you're 6% or above, I know it's quite a low figure, but that's the rule of thumb, because we've seen it over the years. If you're 6% or above click-through rate on your list of properties, then you should be getting some sort of inquiries. Somebody should be lifting the phone to you. Somebody should be emailing you as a buyer, because a 6% and above, it shows real good interest. And it is quite a low rate, but that is the statistic, definitely. So yes, it's easy to think that a property can go stale, but it really doesn't. It just means it needs probably a revision. It could be the fact that maybe your photographs were taken in winter and we're sitting in summer. So it maybe needs new photographs. So the suggestion here is if they do look a bit out of date, the photographs really need to be at least reviewed every 6 months to make sure they're in the right period. It's going to look daft if you've got summer photographs and you're trying to sell in winter. You're maybe going to stand out for all the wrong reasons on all the websites, because then that's when somebody will think immediately coming into the market for the first time that, wait a minute, that house has been in the market for a long time, because it doesn't look like it is now. And it can be misleading for some people. Property misdescriptions, we've got to watch out for that. So definitely, I would say that. So watch out for surprisingly high valuations, long contract terms, and the ruse to sign you up now and gradually get your price down over the next several months. Yeah, you have touched on that, David, about actually getting the price down. A lot of people say that, but there's a good strategy for realignment of bringing a price down in order to push it back up, and we've done that quite successfully, quite a lot over the years, haven't we, Andrea?
We have, yeah. I mean, it does work, and I have seen the results. Personally, I'm helping my mum sell a property at the moment, and we did a price realignment, which hasn't quite hit that bit, but I still think we're in a difficult situation at the moment. We've just had an election. We're in the school holidays. I think things are very quiet in the particular area that my mum is trying to sell. So we're going to sit tight, because it's given me great hope this morning, knowing that, it's not the property. It's just the buyer isn't out there yet. And that buyer probably doesn't even know that they're looking for a house yet. They maybe just, they're not in that position yet. So they'll be there eventually.
That's why you use retargeting strategy. So in other words, because if they're messaging their pals on Messenger or WhatsApp, or they're talking on the phone or anything like that, and it picks up data about their thinking about selling or buying, then we'll be able to retarget with them with the video content and the actual listing itself before they even think about going to Rightmove or Zoopla or Prime Location. This is why it's so important to understand to have an agent with a good digital marketing strategy. Probably the third one for me in this accurate inflation versus an inflated valuation is minimize your time commitment to any agent who recommends a price way above the current market values. You deserve a second chance with another agent whenever you want it. That's definitely, I would say. So definitely, I would personally, if it's really obvious, a classic example recently, we had someone that wanted to change to us. It was located in Kennoway, and they had a big house. They had bought off us originally, and they hadn't really done anything to it at all. So when we did normal indexation, the difference between our normal indexation and actually speaking to the surveyor about where that price of that property would be now, as opposed to what the agent has got it on just now, was £100,000 of a difference. You would have thought that seller would have easily said to them, where did you get this valuation from? Literally, they had it as 415,000 when they put it on, and our calculations was coming at 315. They only bought it for 260 about 5 years ago, and they've done nothing to it at all. And yet still got it on. You didn't know, because the agent said, maybe we could bring it down a wee bit and actually maybe see if we can get 380 for it. And it's like, you'll never get that in a million years. You're in a cloud cuckoo land. But because of this hope, of this gambling attitude, it's like they're actually taking a gamble on the fact that they'll never be able to move if that's the case. They'll be stuck where they are, because there's no one that's going to pay them for that, pay them that figure for it. It's going to have to come down significantly from there. And we told them the truth. They were signing up with us, and we told them the truth, and it was like, oh well, we don't want to hear that. It's like, you don't want to hear the truth, but I know what's going to happen. You're never going to sell your property, and you're going to come back at some point in time and say, you were exactly right. And do you know what happens then? Your existing agent has done so much damage to your property listing and put everybody else off as a result of it, no one wants to see it. And we have to try and do some amount of repair work in terms of trying getting it back in front of people and getting them to actually see it. So there's another strategy that you've got to watch out for. Agents will use to deliberately do that. So given that almost everyone starts their property search online, which they do, most see it on social media, to be honest, your asking price can either target the preferred audience to get you sold or lose you among more expensive homes and buyers who want more. That does make sense, doesn't it? Well,
Yes.
typically. Well, think about it. It's like it's easy to say, I tell you what, is it no worth, 20,000 more? But then it drops you into a category listed with other properties. Now, here's a really good one. If you've got your house on the market right now, look at the price band in where you are. So if you're on it 250, 300,000, okay, do a search from 25,000 below, 25,000 above. So if you're at 300,000, do it from 275 to 325 and look at the list of these properties in your area which come up against yours. And tell yourself honestly if you would buy yours before you buy someone else's. And if the answer to this, you would buy someone else's first, you need to realign the price of your property to make sure it's in the right category then. And you need to review it, definitely. If you want to do something now. If you've got all the time in the world to wait and this is just a chance in a million, if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, I'll stay where I am. Then just wait. That's all you need to do. But I would really say, check the banding where you're in and just check it. And for God's sake, do not have a price point. It does not straddle smack bang on a price point. In other words, if you've got a price point of an valuation of 325,000, we'll give an example, an exact example. If you have a valuation of 325,000, do not let your agent put it on. It offers over £324,500. Yeah, you know what's coming, Andrea. You'll get everybody that will see you up to 325,000 because that's the price point it splits on Rightmove and Zoopla and that, and everybody else's websites do that. So you'll get everybody up to 325,000 where you will look the dearest because you'll be at the top of the price point, and you'll get no one from 325,000. All because your agent used the Woolies mentality of $9.99. Is your house that cheap? No. So that's why you have to watch for your price banding. Do not let your agent put it 50 quid below the 10,000 price point, and make sure it aligns so you get both sides of the audience on the internet. There's an amazing amount of agents that still use pre-internet pricing strategies. And the internet's been around for about, 15, 20 years now? And they're still
longer than that.
Yeah, it goes back
We're
to
old now,
education.
Jim.
But in terms of using, everybody using it, and most people being on the internet to get all the information and Google searches and that, probably about 20 years, I would say. So it's been around all that time, and yet there's still estate agents out there using pre-internet pricing strategies. Watch out for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the next one. Over to you, Andrea. How do you choose the best estate agent?
Choosing the best estate agent.
Well, this is you, and I know you've chosen me, so I've got
more than once.
But apart from that, how do we go about choosing the best estate agent? What would your thoughts be on it as a seller?
Right. Well, as a buyer, obviously you go to whichever agent that has the home that you want. So that's regardless of their image, the style, or even their competence. You want that house, so you're going to.
Good point.
You have to make dealings with that estate agent. But when you sell, obviously you're going to want to look for the skill, the enthusiasm, and the integrity from
on your side, yeah,
an estate agent that you want to use. So let's a few top tips for shortlisting estate agents. Obviously, you're going to invite them to your home, to make sure you get recommendations from your neighbours and nearby friends. Check online for accomplished marketing, and ask questions such as, what would impress you most about your estate agent? Was it fantastic photography, great descriptions, and which ones left you a bit disappointed? What the agent's service standards around viewings, feedback, staying in touch and maintaining momentum, and which property portals does each agent use, and why do they use them, and how do they utilise social media?
These are all good points. The first thing I would pick up on that, definitely to reinforce a bit. It's amazing how many people will go to an estate agent as a buyer, like you said, and regardless of their image or their style or their competence, they'll immediately give them the property on the premise that because they're buying a property from them, they would sell it through them because they have this impression that this will make it easier for them to buy it. And it's like, no, that's a estate agent's trick. It's been used for years to give you that impression that you can only buy that property if you put your house on with them. That's always been the case. Never in a million years has any seller really said that to any estate agent, and the fact that I want the condition that they have to sell their property through you in order for them to buy it from me. A lot of the times, a lot of sellers do not say that to their estate agents, but estate agents give that impression so they can get your listing. After all, boards breed boards to them. Probably the other one I see as well, as you said about the home getting recommendations. Facebook is probably a great way for recommendations. However, when you ask for recommendations from people that have actually used these people or used that service. Do not just go and randomly say, I'm looking to sell my house, who do you think I should use? Because you'll be amazed at the amount of people that actually give you recommendations and they've never used that person before.
Mhm.
And so it could be easy to get caught up in the biggest agent that's got the biggest volume because they're seen the most times by the boards. So it's easy to say that and recommend that, when in actual fact, sometimes the more bespoke agent is the one that actually adds the most value to the end of your sale. In other words, they get a higher price than everyone else. We've got examples of that all the time, night and day. We've got the examples where a property is sold downstairs exactly the same than ours, and we've sold it upstairs for a difference of £30,000 to £40,000 more. And it's exactly the same property within a month. One of them was within a week, and it was 115,000 a difference. And it's exactly the same property. It's actually, this was bigger with a garden. That's weird, eh? But that's what happens. It's all about getting the right estate agent. So remember, if you're asking for recommendations on Facebook, remember include recommendations from people that have actually used that agent. An agent that you've used. So the classic example is go on and say, has anybody got any recommendations for an estate agent that they've actually used, rather than actually just saying estate agent?
Yeah, I think that leads into the next bit as well, sort of the agent's service standards. I think you can get recommendations from your friends and family about an agent and how well they've kept in touch with you. Have you had to go chasing that agent for information on your viewing feedbacks? And, if what you want is an agent that's proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah. It is quite important. It's easy to forget, though, that, it's easy to forget with us because we deal with a lot of people at weekends and at nights as well. And we message them and we email them back and forward. So it's easy for the people that we're dealing with to forget that actually that's not typical. That's not typical of an estate agent. Most estate agents will switch off at 5 o'clock and you'll never hear from them again until the next day or the Monday morning from the Friday. That'll be the end of it. You'll never hear from them until that time. Most estate agents do that. So it's surprising when we often get an expectation about, I have had it, where it's like, oh, you never answered me back. It's like, well, I'm sitting in London, I'm on holiday. It's like, and it's the weekend and I'm at an AC/DC concert and it's 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it was funny.
That's a classic example. That's a classic example. It's a Sunday night. It's 9 o'clock. AC/DC's on the stage, and you're asking for a reply, and you're wondering why I wasn't able to reply. And it's like you would never get that type of service off anybody else.
Yeah. I speaking to someone that hadn't spoken for a while, and I said, "Oh, how's your daughter doing?" They said, "Oh, she's just started a job in a state agency." In one of the local ones, to me anyway. And I said, "Oh, that's really good." "Oh, she's training to be an estate agent and she's absolutely loving it. She says it's perfect, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And I thought,
okay, you're not an estate agent then. Yeah.
oh,
You may think you've got a title of an estate agent, but you're not really an estate agent because estate agents don't do that. It's not 9 to 5. It's a lifestyle choice to be an estate agent, definitely. So yeah, definitely. Property portals does the agent use is quite important. Now, personally for me, Andrea, I think the most important portal now is Facebook.
Mhm.
But I actually think just assuming that an agent has a Facebook page is possibly not the best thing to do. Even though you need to look at a lot of their listings on their page and then see how many views they're getting per listing. In other words, it tells you in the bottom corner most of the time when you look at a video or you look at anything like that, you see the amount of views that this person's getting, because often estate agents go on about the fact that they've got a Facebook page and how great they are at what they do, and they'll put it on their Facebook page, and we just assume, yeah, everybody's going to see it. Facebook
Mhm.
don't let you see anything. Facebook
Yeah.
are in the business of making money. They're not in the business of showing your properties for your estate agents to anybody and everybody. They're in the business of making money. And just because you've got 50,000 followers or whatever it is on your page, Facebook will not show them to all these followers if you put a property on. You
No.
have to understand Facebook, how the algorithms work, and how to retarget people in the right way in order to get these views up. And that's what social media retargeting is all about, putting money behind campaigns in a cost-effective way to deliver the right result and getting your property in front of the right people that are
Mhm.
indicating by their data and their habits that Facebook's collating and Google's collating in their analytics that they might be looking to buy a property like yours. So it's the difference between hundreds of viewings and thousands of viewings. Now, I'll be honest, our YouTube channel gets 23,000 views a month, just YouTube alone. Now, some of the properties actually get about 8,000 views just on video, just one property. And
Mhm.
most of them are actually getting thousands of views than anybody else's. And that, for me, is where everything is. After all, what are you watching and listening to this right now on? Most people out there, I bet you 80% of the people out there that are watching this right now or listening to this later on and watching it later on are sitting on a mobile phone. You have to have a proper mobile strategy. And that means recording in this format and not that format. Because this is what Facebook allows you to do now. Facebook does not allow you to record live like this anymore. They force you to do that. I've tried it already. I tried AC/DC going live, and I went, no, switch your camera around. It's like, so everybody records. Facebook makes you, and you get rewarded for it, as well as Instagram and as well as TikTok as well. All these platforms. I mean, TikTok's an emerging market still, and I don't think any buyers really come through that, mainly investors. But Facebook is definitely the way forward, because that's the television. Facebook is your television channel.
Mhm.
This is your TV, and your TV has now been relegated to your radio station. It just sits in the background while everybody sits and plays on their phone or updates their self, and then now and again they look up and go, "What happened on the telly? What happened?" It's like, "What happened?" And then the person next to them goes, "Were you not watching this?" And then a wee bit aggravation. How do I know that? How do I know that? Because we have it as well. It's like, "You don't be watching that film." It's like, "Yeah, I was. I just missed that bit." But a lot of people spend all their time on their mobile, so it makes absolute sense to get in front of them on a mobile platform, but also make sure your agent is paying for adverts to go straight with your property to the people that actually matter, because
Mhm.
you're getting right in front of them for that reason. This is why you're watching this, anybody that's watching right now. And for that very reason, you're getting that opportunity and to get in front of people, and you have a captive audience then. You're no longer in a shopping centre like Rightmove and Zoopla and Prime Location. You're not competing against anybody else's properties. Your property is going straight on this platform right in front of them. There's no chance that anybody else could take that property away, take that buyer away. So they've got a potential to see your property in precision target marketing. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what happens with the newspaper websites as well as we buy into. So the Times, the Sunday Times, the Telegraph, the Scotsman, the Herald, and when people are reading their news online, it's like if their data suggests that they've been looking on Rightmove, they've been looking on any competitor's website in your area for your type of property, then our advert will appear right next to the newsfeed or right under their newsfeed on the phone
Mhm.
to target them, because it knows that they've been looking for property like yours in the area. And that's why you have to have an agent which invests in these new technologies in order for your property to be seen by the right people, because you could lose 15, 20,000 pound, even 5,000 pound. Imagine even £1,000. Imagine taking £1,000 out of your pocket right now. Would you be upset? Yes. So why are you never upset when your house is sold? Think about this, and let me use this in another way. The agent that you bought the property from, think about that. Your house you're sitting in right now, the agent that you bought it from, would you have paid a bit more for that property? Would you have paid a bit more?
Yeah.
If the answer to that is yes, then that's not the agent you should be using, because they've left money on the table for their seller when you bought it. They failed to identify you would have paid a bit more, and they've lost money for their seller. So that's not the agent you should be using to sell, if that's the case, just because you bought it from them, because they've actually left money on the table.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key to ask yourself. The property you're sitting in right now, would you have paid more from the agent that you bought it from? And the answer to that is yes. You should not be using that agent, because they're clearly not a skilled negotiator. So finally, like you said about choosing the best estate agent, Andrea, the property portals that the agent use, why do they use them? How do they utilize them? What is their social media strategy? And given that it's usually several months between putting your property on the market and moving out, think about how each agent makes you feel. Who fills you with the most confidence about your house is going to get sold for the right price and they're going to do the right job? And who fills you with the most confidence if it doesn't happen like it's supposed to happen, that they're still on your side and they're not just hoping the fact that your property might sell quickly so they can get a fee?
Yeah. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Because that's what volume agents do, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about just the fee, a volume. We've not got time to deal with anybody else. We'll just bring hundreds of properties on the market, and some of them will sell and some of them won't. And it's like, for the ones that won't, we'll just kind of leave them at the side to get on with it, but we'll just deal with all the stuff that's selling right now. That's kind of how it does.
Mm-hmm.
This brings us on to the one about legals. You know, the difficult for me about legals, Andrea, is I wanted to have a conveyancing shop. In other words, to do all the legals and legal work, and with proper legal people.
Mm-hmm.
But the Law Society in Scotland won't allow me to oversee or own a conveyancing arm to our business. And the way the reason I wanted a conveyancing arm so is I can control the process, I can systematize the process, I can bring the people in, I've got the skill and knowledge and expertise, and will work for the client to get the job done regardless of the time of day. That's why I wanted to have my own conveyancing shop, to have it in-house. Unfortunately, I can't do that because the Law Society prohibits me, because I'm not a qualified solicitor. So it doesn't allow me just to even own a conveyancing shop. Yes. Yeah, I've had it out with them already. And then they all close ranks on you, because even if you get another solicitor to maybe try and go and, oh, well, that might affect my membership of the Law Society. It's a bloody cartel. It's a cartel in Scotland, the Law Society.
Right.
It's not in England. You're allowed conveyancing in England. You're allowed to do conveyancing separately and all the rest of it. But in Scotland, it's completely closed shop. It's a cartel by the Law Society of Scotland. But let's not dwell on that. So this is all about the legal tasks and the minimising legal delays. What's the things that we should be looking for? What is the one biggest mistake?
I would say the one biggest mistake is people don't think ahead for when they're selling their properties. So they can hold up their own sale because they failed to provide their agent with the essential information, or waiting to find a buyer before starting their legal work. So it can slow down the sales by months. So you really need to get started. Basic things are like getting your estate agent and your solicitor the proof of your ID.
Yeah.
They need this before your market. Your home can be marketed to comply with the anti-money laundering regulations. But we've had sellers that have taken quite a long time to be able to provide this. So everything's just in limbo until that happens. Also, you need to instruct your solicitor as soon as your property's going on the market and it's going to go on the market, and let them get a head start by getting your title deed looked out and putting together a draft contract pack straight away. Don't wait until you've got an offer accepted on the property before doing it.
Yeah.
And don't let your solicitor wait until you've got an offer on your property before doing it. If they're not going to get their finger out right at the start, don't use them.
I think that's quite important. It's one of the things I first identified when I first started, about 2006 or something like that. I went to the solicitors, I sat down with them and I asked them, what do you need us to do? Because I noticed you actually take ages to do everything. And they says, well, the one thing that you could do for us, Jim, in the very beginning is tell us straight away as soon as you bring someone on. Give us a heads up, because the worst thing ever is we usually find out at the last minute when you've got the house sold, and then all of a sudden there's a mass rush to get everything done within a short period of time in order to get it to conclude. And it's like, it's not possible for us to do that, because then we have to drop everything and then order all the titles from all the different places. And then if there's any complications with the titles of the property, then we have to go and investigate that and make sure we've got it right. And God forbid, if the land register's got the registration wrong the last time round, and they've got that wrong, they've maybe got a bit, coming into the next property on your title, and it shouldn't be there. We have to then try and go and rectify that for the seller. And so tell us straight away beforehand. When you list the property, at least we can get some groundwork done beforehand. Now, I've got to admit, Gilbertsons in Glenrothes, Audrey Pratt. I've worked with Audrey for years and years and years. Audrey does all my stuff personally for me now and my property purchases. But I tell you what, when I need anything done, it's like lightning.
Yeah.
Lightning. I had 2 properties I'm just buying for my portfolio the other now, and literally she had all the legwork done within days, and everything was in place ready to go. And all we needed to do is get, the solicitor to do the standard securities. Where it was Aldermore we're getting it through, so they've got a solicitors panel. We've got to choose the right solicitor, so we managed to get the right solicitor on board for the Aldermore side for the securities, and the job will be done. And Audrey did all that for me. I didn't do any of that. I just went, Audrey, who would you want to pick to do the other side? Because we have a choice. And Audrey went, this is the people to pick. We'll get them to do it. I'll instruct them to do it. And then we just sent it back to them, to Aldermore, and Aldermore's then done that in conjunction with the broker, setting up all the mortgages. Kesa Salimi, mortgage broker, is doing that for me at Freedom Financial. So he's doing all that for me. So I've got a fantastic team that do everything for me almost instantaneous, and they understand the system that I operate in order to do it. So that's why it's important to possibly, I know there's an allegiance to a lot of people. The first thing they say when they've been in their house for years and years and years, when I go to say, is there any particular solicitor that you would want me to use to do your conveyancing? Every single time, most come out with the last person that they bought their house from. It did the solicitor work for them. And that could be 10 years ago. Now, within 10 years, I kind of think service levels and that would have changed. Possibly. It might be for the better, might be for the worse. That person might no longer be there that you dealt with. It might have been taken over. It might be out of business. But that's not really the way you should be choosing a solicitor. You should be actually asking for a recommendation from your estate agent. But also, just tongue in cheek with this, if you ask for your recommendation from your estate agent, ask them if they get a rebate or a kickback out of referring a certain solicitor once they refer them. If they recommend a solicitor, I would openly ask them, so do you get any kickback or rebate or money out of that referral? Or are they just people that you know and that you've used for years? Now, for us personally, we get nothing out of it from our solicitor referrals. Nothing. Zero. And the reason for that is because I choose a solicitor to recommend based on my own personal experience. Someone asked me the other day to recommend when I was, I know there's a client I've got that's selling in Crieff, and they wanted me to go to Crieff. Does this sound familiar, Andrea?
Oh, I wonder.
They wanted me to go to Crieff to sell a property because the agent up there wasn't selling their property for them correctly. And they realised what I was doing. They went, wow, could you do that for me in Crieff? I went, I'm sorry, I can't. But I went onto Facebook and asked for recommendations. But I tell you what, there was one guy came back to me and said to me, it's like, I'll do it for you. And I'm like, I have no idea who you are. I know you're an estate agent, but I'm not going to refer you because basically it's down to the fact that my referral is my reputation. So if you're not as good as what I think I would be and the standard I would expect, then it's going to reflect on me badly. So it says, I'm sorry, on this occasion, I can't refer you. I did refer an agent that I knew because I'd gone on and looked at their social media strategy, and I'd done some research on the person itself. So I was able to recommend them an estate agent. I says, look, but make sure they are doing these sort of things. But so I was able to do that recommendation, but I just couldn't do it. It's too far afield for me.
He didn't want to buy a house in Skin, did he?
Yeah. So, but that's where we are. That's where it is. So, if you're going to get recommendations for solicitors from your estate agent, I would definitely be asking: is there a referral fee in it for you? A referral fee, or a rebate, or a kickback? And if there's not, I would be more relaxed about that. If there is, then you've got to think, why are they pushing them to that solicitor? Then, if that's the case, obviously to get the money. And I don't think personally that's the right thing to do. I think it should be on personal recommendation based on who you trust, who you know, and who you've got the job done with before.
Right. So, yeah. So, lastly, on minimizing legal delays, obviously, if you're buying new builds, the sales on those go really quite fast because the house builders get everything ready. All their legal stuff's all ready even before they launch them. But I mean, you can do the same with not new sales. It's just a case of being prepared.
Yeah, definitely, I would say that. Yeah, new builds pretty intense. You know yourself. As soon as you basically put a deposit down to take a property, they want you to conclude missives within 2 months, and that puts a lot of pressure on the buyer. But it also puts a lot of pressure if they've got a house to sell on the estate agent as well. And the fact that, and I've had it recently where somebody's come to me and says, we've got 9 weeks, we're going to change from an estate agent in St Andrews to you, but we've got 9 weeks to do it. And I thought, God, why didn't you change to me last year and we wouldn't have this problem? If you just listened to me last year and you changed, because I've been on the market for a year with this agent, but if you changed me last year, we wouldn't have had this problem. Your house would have been sold by now, and you would be buying this house no bother with no stress. But now, last minute, it's like, Jim, we know you're going to be able to do the job. Let's go with you. Let's change it to you. And I've just like pulled out all the stops to get it done for them. But it does put an intense amount of pressure on the other estate agent to do something for that person. So if you're going to change, just change. You know, that's the reality. If you don't have any confidence in your estate agent anymore, just change. But I would say, remember, this is a quite difficult market. There's a huge amount of property on the market right now. I'm just going to check Zoopla, actually. Just let me check Zoopla to see where Zoopla is right now in terms of the number of properties in Fife for sale, because this is a real good indicator I like to check every single time. 1,064 properties are actually for sale on Zoopla just now. That's 2 months worth of stock on the market. So on average, it's taking 2 months. Now, I know for a fact, if you look at KY16, there's about 5 or 6 months worth of stock. That's St Andrews. That's a long time to sell in St Andrews. And then you move into East Neuk, it's about 4 months worth of stock. You move into Leavenmouth, you're probably sitting around 2 months worth of stock, or just over 2 months. And then you move over to the west of Fife, and all of a sudden it's like you're down at 1 month and 1.5 months, because they're more popular in the west of Fife because it's the proximity to Edinburgh and the easy access into Edinburgh. So there's a lot of people moving out to that area, but we're also encouraging them to move into our areas, and because of the new train station, it becomes more attractive. Definitely. So just bear all these things in mind when you're thinking about where you are, should I be changing, and just have a frank conversation with your estate agent. I think that's probably what it comes down to, and be prepared for your estate agent. Sometimes just going, see you later then, because sometimes, I'll be honest, you know why an estate agent sometimes goes see you later is because you're no listening to them. You'll not take their advice. It's like, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not going to do anything about it. And it's like, I want my house sold. I want my house sold. I desperately need it sold. I'm committed to doing this. I need it done within this time. And then you tell them what the strategy is you need to do. Oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not giving that amount of money off my property. You're not giving anything off your property. You're actually realigning your property at the right price in order to attract a new audience, in order to try and get it sold and push people back up. That's what you're trying to do. But you'd be amazed at the amount of people, and I've heard it, I've seen it before, I've heard it before. I've seen other people, other estate agents come to me with their problems and then say, I've spoken to my estate agent, and it's a familiar story. They don't want to take their advice of their estate agent because they don't want to believe that's the case. They're still holding out for this massive amount of money they think they're going to get. But they have to be realistic. If they've put themselves under pressure and put themselves on a deadline, they're going to have to accept the offer that's going to come in. That's it. This is why I often say to people, for God's sake, put your house on the market and manage the sale first before you actually buy and commit to anything else. It's a hell of a lot less stressful than what it is where you go and buy your house and then all of a sudden it's like, I've made an offer on a house, I have to get my house sold within a certain amount of period of time. That is putting yourself under real pressure. Because if you get somebody coming along that lowballs you and that's the only offer on the table, then you're stuck. You're either going to accept it or you're going to lose your next dream house.
Yeah. But I have known instances of people actually getting offers on their property, good offers, over home report value, and they're still deciding whether to accept it or not.
It's like, just get on with it and accept it. In this type of market, I think it would be, because again, it slows down because of the number of buyers, because everybody's on holiday and the election as well. And this is typically what happens. Let's prepare for the photographs and viewings and video. I mean, when your home's bought, when you bought your home, you probably had some viewings where the presentation was totally tantalizing and others made you wonder if the owners were trying to put you off. The first step in getting a sale is making your home as attractive as possible. It has to be. And I don't mean, for example, Queen Margaret, I've put on yesterday. It's basically, it's had to be gutted, and it's a golden opportunity for somebody to put their own stamp on it. And yes, it does look attractive. And the reason it looks attractive is because you walk into every room and basically it's a blank canvas. And even though it's not as dated wallpaper, it's got no carpets, it looks good because you see every room and what the possibilities are in that, especially when your estate agent talks to you about what these possibilities could be and what you could do with stuff. Why do you think I say video? Your estate agent talks to you, because that's why it's so important in a video to actually do a walkthrough and actually talk to people what the possibilities are and what it could be for them. Because what we're doing is we're not selling the house, we're selling the dream that comes with it. People move to your property for what you saw in the first place as well. It's everything you saw in the first place. It's everything why somebody else will see that in there. And that's the type of buyer. Who you were when you first bought this is the type of buyer we're looking for to buy it now when you put your house on the market. That's key and instrumental here. So that's why I tend to ask all my sellers, it's like, well, why did you buy it? And then also, why are you selling it? Or why am I here? What do you want me to solve for you? What problem? Because it's usually a problem I'm needing to solve. It's not, I need you to sell my house. That's the obvious. But there's usually a problem behind that. It needs to be solved in order to do this and why this is getting done. Sometimes I'll actually tell people, I wouldn't sell your house. Don't sell your house. There's no point, because you can do that, and that solves your problem for you. I never realised that. And they go away scratching their head and think, but you're an estate agent. Why you're supposed to be selling my house. It's like, you would want to sell it. No, I don't want to sell your house if it's no right. I'll tell you the truth and let you decide for yourself. Anyway, so here's what are some of the key things we've got to think about when we're doing the photographs and viewings.
Over-furnished rooms and cluttered surfaces. There's nothing worse. So try and get clear sight lines and highlight features in the property. Open up the floor space so that viewers can move around easily. You want them to be able to envisage their own things in the property. So having a blank canvas, yes, it's good to let people see the space. Sometimes it's a bit daunting going into an completely empty property, but you have to weigh up the pros and cons of each. So if there's any minor repairs that you need to do, such as leaky taps, cracked tiles, broken door handles, get those tired and scuffed walls given a wee fresh coat of paint just to bring it nice and fresh and airy looking. Outside, you want to maximise your curb appeal, so just first impressions, you only get that one chance to make a first impression. Make it welcoming to your buyers, have a tidy garden, make sure the windows are clean and that the front doors nicely painted.
I think a clean and tidy home feels bigger and brighter, which makes the buyers want to pay more money for it. So it's always worth investing in the time to perfect your presentation. And again, taking advice from your estate agent. God's sake, listen to your estate agent. It's like they're not saying it for the good of their health. They've not got their own agenda. The agenda is to sell your house to get paid. That's the whole point. So they're obviously going to tell you something that's going to be beneficial for you in order to sell your house so they can actually get paid. Because at this point in time, they're doing everything for nothing.
Yeah.
And that costs
Yeah.
money. That costs money.
And
How
they're the
many
experts.
how many industries do you know that go out and say, I tell you what, car industry, you go into a garage, do you get to take the car out and try it for 3 months and then say, oh, well, I didn't really like it, and just hand it back and no expect to pay anything? But for all of a sudden, the estate agency industry seems to be like that. It's like people don't expect to pay for anything. It's like, oh, well, my house never sold, so I'll take it off and I don't need to pay anything. It's been on the market for about 2 years. And it's like, okay, so we've spent all that time and resource and all that information. And we've probably revised and redone things. We've done videos, we've done more campaigns, we've done everything else. And it's like, oh, well, we'll just take it off and we'll not pay you anything. I don't know any other industry it's like that expects to do that. Or you go and order. The classic example is let's look at East Newt. Classic example. It's like you tell a fisherman to go out and they go out in the boat and say, look, I want 6 tons of fish, and then they come back and say, oh look, circumstances have changed. I only need 2 now, and they're like, what do I do with the other 4? Oh, well, I don't expect to pay for that. It's like, see how that could be. It's like, I'm always amazed. I mean, people actually think it's like, oh, well, it costs you nothing to sell it, is it not? All right, okay, all the light heating and lighting and stuff and everything, but everybody sitting there is doing it all for free. It's just a bugbear. So clean and tidy home, brighter makes you want to. And I noticed Laura had actually asked about photographs and the rest of it. So what I didn't say was your photographs should be taken every 6 months. I said your photographs should be reviewed every 6 months. So you review the photographs. If they look fine, they look fine. It's not going to make any difference running around, because I'm amazed at the amount of people that actually keep telling me, oh, we took another photograph or we did another photograph, and you go around and take the photograph and it's exactly the same as the other photograph. It's there. It's like your photographs really aren't going to make that fundamental difference. It's not the be all and end all. It's a combination of all the different things and in the whole circle of the property sale, which will make that overall difference to everyone else. So yes, you can review things over every 6 months. That's what a normal estate agent would do that anyway. And we do that anyway. We don't need to tell people we're doing it. We just review it anyway to make sure everything's still in place, and you just go ahead and do it. Maybe we should tell people that's what we're doing, because sellers sometimes think that you're not doing anything for your property, when in actual fact, every single week we're sitting down and we're going through all the stock. And we're going, what do we need to do here? What do we need to do there? What should we do there? What should we do there? And sometimes we just don't have the time to relay it to the customer. Maybe we should do that a bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, so this then brings us to the final conclusion. This is the one that's the most important: accepting the right offer. Not all buyers are the same, and the highest offer may or may not be the right one for you. A good agent will help you sift through the details and negotiate the best deal by getting answers to the questions. What questions should we be looking to get the answers to, Andrea?
Yeah. Well, firstly, is your buyer chain free? Are they selling another home? Are they 100% cash, or are they getting a mortgage?
Yeah.
Are the funds in the UK unusable now, or are they subject to money laundering checks from abroad?
Do you know, I had it last night with someone. They came onto my messenger and actually phoned me because they know me. And they says, oh, you've got that property there. It's like, I've got, and the first thing I said, so have you got the money in the bank then? Because it's on a pre-portal. It says you'll have to be a cash offer at this point in time if you're going to make the seller an offer they can't refuse. And can you pay over that amount that they're asking right now? And this person said, yes, 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 yes. And then when I put them in touch with Sophie went, oh, they've got to arrange a commercial mortgage. See how that's important to requalify. So Sophie requalified the same person, and they told them a completely different story. So this is all about making sure that the buyer is telling you the right information, so you can have the confidence to tell your client or your seller that this is the offer you really seriously consider or possibly accept at this point in time, to make it happen for you at the other side.
Yeah.
So it's
I
about
think also,
qualifying the buyer to make sure they're in that position. Especially the chain fee thing's a really good one, isn't it, Andrea?
yeah, it is, because I mean that can make a huge impact on the person that's selling your property, to move on to their next one, to suddenly
Yeah.
find, oh, a chain that they thought wasn't there has just fallen through and it's
We've had
holding
it.
back their sale.
We've had it. I mean, you know, in this type of market just now, you will get it a lot more often than you would have a couple of years ago. So it's important to have an experienced estate agent that understands about fall throughs and chain building and everything like that. And chain building has not been around for 6, maybe 7, 8 years, because everything was selling without chains being built or anything like that. But one of the experiences I had recently was in Largo Ward. We took it off another agent, and that agent had a house to sell for the client that was wanting to buy from us. He wanted to buy ours. So we took it off after 3 months and they not getting any interest. We then sold it in 3 weeks for the same price. So we managed to sell it. But the person that walked through the door to buy it was on with that agent that we took it off of. And then what we did was we qualified them straight away by saying, well, what position are you in? And they went, well, I don't know. Like, sorry, what? What do you mean you don't know? Your house is sold in St Andrews. You've got sold on the board. Surely you should know what your buyer's position is in. I don't know. So they phoned their estate agent. Their estate agent went, well, we don't know. What, sorry? You put sold on the board as an estate agent and you have no idea what the position of the buyer is. Wow. Do you know it took about a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks to actually get all this resolved? Because this person had a property to sell. It was buying their house, and we wouldn't put sold on our board then for that reason, in case anybody else came along and saw this. So we wouldn't put sold on the board, and therefore we said, we need to know if this buyer's got their house sold. So that buyer hadn't even got his house on the market. They put their house on the market to sell it. But then we said, well, what's the position of your buyer then? And they went, well, I don't know. Oh, come on, really? After me quizzing you about the other one, it's like you don't know the position of the buyer that's buying your house to buy this house, for you to buy this house. This is crazy. Surely estate agents need to be doing this job. And apparently they're not, because they don't understand what chain building is all about. So then we went down, two buyers down, and then went to that agent and said, right, what position are you in? Well, we're just about to go in the market. Then about a couple of days later, they got an offer and it was accepted. So what position is your buyer in then? Oh, well, we're not sure. We'll have to check. Come on. There's nobody care what they're doing. It's like, oh my God, 3 buyers, and none of them have been qualified and nothing to do with us. Okay, so what? We'll go and check. And it's like, oh, they've got their mortgage in principle. I says, has it been issued, their mortgage in principle? They've got a bit of paper to say that. Have you seen it? Oh, we haven't. Right, well, we'll see it first. Right, okay, we've seen it. Right, good. Thank God for that. We can put sold on the board then. So the mortgage in principle was issued for that buyer, and then that buyer was buying his property, who was buying his property, who was buying our property. And eventually, that's what chain building is all about. Now, do you think we had responsibility for doing anything before that? No. But do you think we had to take responsibility for doing that? Absolutely. Because estate agents don't understand the mentality of what it is to chain build, especially in a market like this. Because the money, the 185 billion it was sloshing about after COVID in people's household budgets has now disappeared. It's gone on higher price houses. It's gone on holiday homes. It's gone on holidays. It's gone on new cars. It's gone on, investing. It's gone on wine, booze, and gambling and all the rest of it. It's gone. 185 billion disappeared into the pockets of the people that are the producers from the consumers. That's a wealth creation show. Okay, so that's what's happened to it. That's why chain building is probably so important, to make sure you can get that and make sure your buyer's in a position to do it. Anyway, let's not labour that point. What's the next one we've got to think about?
Does anybody else need to see the home before an offer can proceed? So if someone's parents are giving them a deposit, they might want a final approval of where the money's going. Yeah.
Now that's where it's important as an estate agent. Here's the key here. If you've got an estate agent and you're considering accepting an offer, this is key and fundamental here. And maybe the person that's offered needs to view your property before, they've made an offer, they've not viewed your property. So they've made an offer, you're about to accept it. But they want to view your property after you've accepted the offer. It's like, no. Make sure they either view your property, or if you make it clear that if you accept their offer and put sold on the board right now, they cannot see the property until they've concluded missives. That'll be pinning their colours to the mast. Because what they do is, there's a dirty trick out there that a lot of buyers, well, a few buyers, I wouldn't say a lot, a few buyers actually do, is they put the offer in before they viewed the property, and they say it's on condition of viewing the property, and that's fine, because then you don't need to accept offer until they've viewed it. But a lot of them put it in, they get accepted, get sold on the board, and then 2 weeks later they go, can I get my contractor in to measure up for stuff? And I'll go at the same time, before the missives are concluded. And then they walk in the door, they measure up for stuff, but what they're really doing is pricing the property out for the refit they're needing to do. And if that doesn't come in at the right price, they then go, oh, I've changed my mind. And you've just put off every single other buyer because you've told them it's sold and accepted someone else's offer. That's what you've got to watch out for. So there's a way to manage that process to make sure that you are protected. I did it with someone in Crail, Kurt Wind. New Year's Day, I accepted and negotiated an offer for £45,000 more than the property downstairs went for a month before with another agent. And yet mine was the same property, floor space and everything, same finish as well. And I got £45,000 more for this. But New Year's Day, I accepted an offer, and I said clearly to that person on the phone, because I hadn't viewed it yet, I said, if you're accepting this, if I'm accepting this now, you cannot view the property until we get concluded missives. And you know what she said to me? In that video you did, is there anything I need to look out for? Am I going to be upset when I get this property? Is it going to be any different than what you've said in that video? And I pinned my colours to the mast and went, it's exactly the same as I said in the video. Trust me, there's nothing you need to worry about. The kitchen's fine, glazing's fine, heating system's fine, everything's fine, the location's fine. Everything you saw in that video is factual and correct and accurate. And we negotiated and accepted an offer £45,000 more than downstairs on New Year's Day 2022. And do you know how I managed to do that? Because I said everybody else is looking to view the net on Thursday, so you need to make a decision now. And there was people to view on Thursday, but I put it on New Year's night deliberately to force their hand. But then basically what happened was they accepted the offer was accepted, misses were concluded quickly, and then they were allowed to get in the property because they can't back out once they've seen it.
Yeah.
That's how you negotiate an offer. Everybody else was, by the way, because it was New Year's Day. They were all on holiday and hung over from the night before, whereas I was still negotiating and making sure it happened.
Thirdly, the timescale being offered on the offer, does it match your own, and is the offer subject to particular fittings or furniture being included in any other terms or conditions? I think the only other thing that I might add into that wasn't already there was, if you're getting an offer from a cash buyer, get it written into the offer that they are a cash buyer. Make sure it's in the offer, because I have seen a delay in the conveyancing happening because the cash buyer suddenly turned around and said, oh, we're actually decided to apply for a mortgage and we're just waiting on that. So
you got to watch out for that. I did that yesterday, actually, Andrea. I was round at somebody's house. They're buying one of their properties. They've got a property to sell, but they did say there was a cash offer, and they showed me all the documentation about where the money's coming from. You know, the whole lot of the money. So I've got full confidence that this money will be fine. This will be a cash buy, and their house sale has got nothing to do with them buying that house. And that's why I would be comfortable accepting an offer from them and taking off the market and putting sold on it. Otherwise you wouldn't do that at all. So you're exactly right, I would say. And these kind of nuances and difficulties could actually happen. You know, I've seen people argue over a washing machine before. And I'm like, you having a laugh? This is a £250,000 house, and you're arguing over whether you should get the washing machine or no. I'll buy the damn washing machine if that's important to you at this point in time. And they're like, oh, I understand. Yeah, I get it. We all get locked into this finite view of, you know, it has to be like this, prescribed, and it's got to be like this. And if it's not like this, we're not going to buy it. And it's like, it's a washing machine. Get a new one. And even to the seller, it's like, for God's sake, give the thing away. It's like you've got nobody else on the pipeline right now to buy your property, and you're arguing whether you should take the washing machine or no. I can't imagine you've got a sentimental attachment to this. Just give it away. Here you go. No, I want money for it. Well, I'll take something off your bill then if that's the case. It's like, my God, I can't even understand how people get like that.
Yeah. If you look up the sold price for the house that I'm in at the moment, you actually see that it's got an extra like £273 something added onto it. That was for the American style fridge freezer.
So finally, be aware of mantras like never sell to the first viewer. I tell you what, the first one might be the right one. Look at Deal or No Deal. It's a classic game, isn't it? But it
Oh,
teaches a lot about negotiation and about people's greed.
mhm.
Yeah, it does,
Yep.
doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
it's like the first offer from the banker might be the best offer ever. You might end up with the 1 pence at the end of it, or maybe nothing at all
Mhm.
in that scenario. So
Yeah.
this is why this thing about, if somebody says to you, never sell to the first seller, oh my God, it's like, oh, you should
Yeah.
run a mile from that person.
Yeah.
Because, or the first viewer. It's like, because the first viewer could be the best viewer, and that could be it. I remember when we first started out in 2006, I remember somebody having that mantra and actually saying, oh, but it's only the first viewer. I'll wait. Their house never sold. And you
Mhm.
know, it was about £8,000 more than the £80,000 they were looking for. So it was 88,000, and their house was on at 80,000, and they wouldn't sell it for that reason, because it was the first viewer. That was the only reason. And I'm
Yeah.
like, are you nuts? And they never ever got another offer after that, and never
No.
even another viewer, I don't think. And it sat there for about 9 months, and they just wouldn't listen to what we were saying to them. And eventually, they just took it off. And I don't think they ever sold
Mhm.
after that. I don't think they
Yeah.
ever were able to sell. A lot of people actually don't realize it's like, your circumstances dictate this point in time. If you don't sell to this person, you're stuck where you are. And your
Mhm.
circumstances suggest that you need to move to either downsize, because this house is massive and it's costing you a fortune to run, and this garden is hugely overgrown because you can't afford to pay for the garden every single time, and your council tax bill is massive as well. And then that compounded over the next 6 months, if you take another 6 months to get a viewer, it
Mhm.
comes to about 15 or 20,000 pounds worth of costs. And yet they're telling me, it's like, I don't want to accept a £5,000 less.
Yeah.
This is why it's important to listen to your estate agent. But listen to your estate agent and understand. And it's easy to say to them, if they say this is, it's easy to say to them, I'm not really sure what you mean. Could you explain why you want me to do that? That's what you ask your estate agent. You don't just listen to them blindly. You just say
Mhm.
to them, I'm not really sure what you're trying to say to me. I think I've got the gist of it, but could you explain to me in a wee bit more in layman's terms? I mean, I often say to people, just like, look, just treat me like I'm daft laddie. It's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It just goes straight over my head. Just give me it in layman's terms. Just keep it simple for me. You know,
I do that with you all the time, Jim.
I know. I was going to say that. It's like, this sounds like a familiar story. But I do that a lot. Do you know somebody else that does that? Branson.
Mhm.
Branson does that as well. When he never had a clue until about maybe 5 or 10 years ago what a profit and loss is and what a balance sheet is. And one of his crew came to him one day and outside and went, Richard, do you know what a profit and loss is? And he went, I have no idea. And he said, like, I tell you what I'll do, Richard, for you. Here we go. Here's a wee drawing. Here's the sea, or something to that effect. Now, the sea has many fish in the sea. Maybe they've got 100,000 fish in the sea. If we take a big trawler and take out 50,000 of these fish, and you've got 100,000, you're left with 50,000 fish in your sea. And he says, that's what your profit is. I went, oh. And he says, what we've just taken out is the costs. I went, oh. He says, that makes it simple. That's how it was. That's how it was taught to him. That's how he knows what a profit
Yeah.
is. That's the only reason he knows, is because, like, what we took out is the costs, and what was in the beginning was your sales. What we took out was the costs, and what you were left with, the 50,000 left, was the profit and the fish.
Mhm.
And that makes sense to me now. You don't need to know everything, by the way, in order to be successful at what you do. So yes, yeah, you do treat me like a 5-year-old now and again.
Oh dear.
All right,
Um,
okay. So where were we, and where were we, just to finish off?
well, I think we've covered everything there.
Oh, perfect.
What's your final thoughts on it, Jim?
Final thoughts. Selling for the first time. Put my teeth back in. Uh, Selling for the first time. If you're selling for the first time, probably if you're selling for the second time, even the third time, in all honesty, the market and the way things are done nowadays has changed so much. Don't try to learn it. Don't try
Mhm.
to understand it. Just find an agent that understands it for you. That's the Branson approach. You know, get an expert in to do what you have no idea doing, but just trust and believe in them that they're telling you the right information and follow their instructions.
Yeah.
It's when you don't follow the instructions. It's a classic example, and I'll give you a really good analogy of this. I'm just about to bake a cake, okay? It's going to be a chocolate cake. And someone comes along and says, I tell you what, it's going to be a good cake, and it's going to be a wonderful cake. I know that. It's going to be a beautiful cake at the end, and it's going to look glorious. But then someone comes along that has no idea how to bake a cake and says, can we just leave the eggs out? Do you know that's like a estate agency sometimes? Because someone comes along and says, can I just leave the photographs out? Can I leave that photograph out? Can I leave this photograph out? Could I include my photographs? It's like, you are messing about with my cake, and it ain't going to turn out like it was at the end of it, like it's supposed to be. And that's what a lot of sellers don't understand about the process of an estate agent. They try to put their own stamp on it, and they have no idea. Why do you think Gordon Ramsay sometimes throws a wobbler when somebody comes along and says, that steak's no done like it should be done? And Gordon Ramsay turns around and says, so why do you think it's like, oh, well, I think it should be this, and you should do a wee bit longer than that. And he goes, well, go and open your own restaurant then, if that's the case. But you're no in mine. And that is generally how, you know, some people actually approach this. They want to get involved in the process. They want to include their own photographs. They want to do the video editing. It's like, you know, I think you should start off here, and I think you should do this. And it's like, whoa, I've been doing this for 4,000 videos. I think I know what I'm doing. Someone actually, we had a joke about it, actually, just recently. They sent me the night before, they sent me a full script about what to say in the video. And I turned up the next day, and admittedly they're from television. So I turned up the next day and I says, this is like you in television, like your producer or your writer then sending you a whole different script the next morning when you're about to do the show and saying, could you just learn that and do that? And it's like, what? I've taken ages to put this together in my mind about what we need to do and how we need to do it. And you're trying to rewrite it at the last minute. That ain't going to happen. And we just had a laugh about it. But often I don't think it's because you don't actually see it. You don't see the forest for the trees. And I think that's the advice to take. You know, you bought into your estate in the first place. For God's sake, just trust their advice. That's the most important thing. Trust what they say and believe in it. Or what's the point of being with them if that's the case?
That would be my main advice. You know, they're the experts. They're the ones that have got all the months, the years, the hours of additional training and the knowledge base.
Yeah, your house will just sit and sit and sit and sit and sit if you keep interfering and you keep trying to do everything and you keep ignoring all the advice. It'll just sit there all the time. I mean, I hate to be as blazing and as blunt as that. We could have probably just started that show and just said that in the beginning and just gone away. Just finished off. Saved ourselves an hour and a bit. Just said that. Anyway, let's wrap up there. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Andrea. Thank you very much for everybody tuning in. If you've got any questions later on, please feel free to message us or you can put them in the comments. Until next time, guys, I'll see you for tomorrow night's Sunday night update. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.